Welcome back to our special coverage of the Prime Minister's press conference here held today before televised editors, where he answered a number of big questions. Now, Home Minister P. Chidambaram, in an interview last week to Wall Street Journal, had admitted there was a governance deficit in the government. When I asked this question to the Prime Minister, he admitted that he could not disagree with his colleague's view, and also said there was an ethical deficit.
I think if these events have taken place, I think they do bring out the weaknesses in processes of governance, or you may call them ethical deficit. I don't deny that we need to improve, the quality of governance.
Okay, very quickly also, let's hear what the Prime Minister said on inflation, which he claimed will come to below 7% by the end of March.
I wish to tell you that our economy is in good shape. We will have a growth rate of 8.5% this year. In recent months, inflation and food inflation in particular has been a problem. We want to deal it in a manner that the growth rhythm is not disturbed. At the end of this fiscal year, I think the inflation rate should come down to no more than 7%.
Okay, let me try and come back to where we left off. Is good governance possible in the era of coalition politics? That's the next big question. Vinod Mehta, do you believe that there is a larger ethical deficit that the government faces? To that extent, Manmohan Singh is hamstrung by the kind of people he has around him.
Of course, Rajdeep. I think what the Prime Minister said is an understatement. There is a huge ethical deficit in the country. There was an ethical deficit in UPA. There was an ethical deficit in the NDA. When will we get a Prime Minister in this country in an era of coalition politics who says that I am prepared to sacrifice my government, but I will not condone this corruption or that wrongdoing? I can't see any Prime Minister saying that. So this is a very serious problem in Indian democracy, where you have coalitions, where you have a great hunger to retain power at the center, and then you have to do lots of compromise. Why do you think Mr. Raja and, say, for example, Mr. Sharad Pawar are untouchable? It's simply because of the coalition of compulsions of coalition politics.
But the fact is the Prime Minister could well have said
as an alibi.
But the Prime Minister
is still saying we have to find an answer, but we can't live in denial. We can't pretend this problem doesn't exist.
But am I to then understand that the Prime Minister is just a political survivor, Prabhu Chawla, that's all he wants? When I asked him, did you ever consider quitting? He said, no, I still have a lot of work to do. But yes, there are compulsions of coalition politics, when I asked him about corrupt ministers in his cabinet. So are we seeing a Prime Minister who's personally honest, but is also like Dhritarashtra, who blinds himself to what is going on around him?
I think you have to differentiate between Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and the Prime Minister of a country. They are two different institutions. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was nominated by Sonia Gandhi to become the Prime Minister. Perhaps Sonia Gandhi would have been much more stronger if she was to become the Prime Minister, because she was elected by the people and she was elected by the UPA partners, and this person was nominated by Sonia Gandhi instead. So he doesn't have that kind of moral and political authority to choose his own cabinet. But knowing Manmohan Singh very well, because he has one advantage, his credibility. He is cleanest Prime Minister once we have got to that. He could have imposed the cleanliness, his ethics.
He could have done it.
And even if he wants to recover it now, he is the only Prime Minister who can set it right, because he enjoys that credibility which no other politician
Manish Tiwari, the thing is that Manmohan Singh can impose his credibility on the government. That's the question that we really wanted an answer to, and we didn't get it. Can Manmohan Singh impose his credibility, personal credibility on the government, instead of saying, look, this is coalition government, I can only do so much, instead of being seen as a majboor, helpless Prime Minister almost.
He can call the bluff of the coalition partners.
He can call the bluff. He could have called a Karunanidhi's bluff, for example, on Raja. Manish.
Rajdeep,
yes.
Politics is on the basis of given material. And I think Mr. Arun Jaitley was absolutely correct when he was alluding to the fact that an ethical deficit exists in the entire political system.
But that can't be an excuse.
Possibly that was the reason. No, possibly that needs to be addressed. Possibly that is the reason why Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee in his first term had to induct Sukhram, who was charge sheeted as a minister.
Manish, you are going back again and again.
I'm not trying to justify one by another.
Correct.
All that I am trying to say is that yes, there is an ethical deficit, and that ethical deficit has to be surmounted by many more good people coming into the political
but Ravi Shankar Prasad,
and see as to how we can alleviate it.
Ravi Shankar Prasad, are we then to believe that in a coalition politics, whether it's NDA or UPA, we will not get good, clean governance? If Manmohan Singh cannot deliver it, if perhaps even an Atal Bihari Vajpayee couldn't deliver it, what kind of a leader do we need to deliver good ethical governance?
Rajdeep, first of all, governance deficit was evident today itself in his press conference. He referred to TRAI, but forgot to mention that market conditions must be taken into account was the recommendation of TRAI. He said Finance Ministry approved it, though as Arun rightly pointed out, the Finance Minister Mr. Chidambaram has taken a position to the contrary. Therefore, governance deficit was evident in the press conference itself.
Right.
Now, no, I differ with you. Vajpayee showed his color on many occasions. What is important is the political authority of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister of India is not the CEO of India.
Right.
He is the political leader of the country. He is the leader of the government. And for that, you have to have political legitimacy. And your authority to contain wrong, deviations and corruption comes from there. I regret to say, in spite of his claimed cleanliness, he lacks authority. And therefore, he is not taken seriously by his allies.
Okay.
All that we know that.
Okay, point.
Much of the problem is coming because of that.
Okay, much of the problem is coming because of that. Let's take our final break at this point, because I know that Prasenjit wants to raise questions even linked to inflation. We will raise, though, the bigger question. How will the Prime Minister be judged now by history, whether it's by the Aam Aadmi or others? We will take up that final big question with our special panel when we return after our final break. Welcome back to our final segment, reviewing the Prime Minister's big press conference today. Now, I asked Prime Minister Manmohan Singh today what he thought was his biggest regret and his biggest achievement in his second tenure as UPA Prime Minister. Listen to first to his biggest regret and then the achievement.
It is a big regret that these things, these irregularities have happened. They should not have happened, and that has certainly, I think, given me, I think I am not very happy about these developments. The very fact that despite a very unfavorable international economic environment, we managed to ensure that our economy's growth rhythm is not adversely affected.
Okay, so that's the biggest regret and achievement. Our final question, how will the Prime Minister then be judged? Ravi Shankar Prasad, the Prime Minister today said there's too much of negativism which will destroy the India story if you only focus on scams and only the negatives. How do you respond to that as a party which seems, according to the Prime Minister, to only focus on the negatives?
We don't need a certificate about our politics from the Prime Minister. Mr. Manmohan Singh has never been a political leader, a mass leader, a national leader, a good economist. But today there is a gross mismanagement of food economy of the country, and the common people are suffering for the last 3 years. Now we have heard by March it will come down. The same we heard about 2010, the same we heard about 2009 as far as price rises.
You don't think there's too much of negativism? You don't think that you're putting too much of negativism, as the Prime Minister says, is affecting the self-confidence of the country?
Not the least. India's self-confidence is beyond Dr. Manmohan Singh and beyond all of us. The people of the country know their worth.
Okay.
The second thing which worries me more is that though India's stature as an economic powerhouse is rising, Rajdeep, but these kind of scandals after scandals knock that image of the country as a country to do proper business. And I regret crony capitalism is lurking from the back door. Go manage the persons like Rajas, flex the muscles, manipulate the rules, and
crony capitalism. Prabhu Chawla is pointing out to me that crony capitalism also was there in the NDA years, but we won't go into that. Ravi Shankar Prasad, appreciate your joining us. Prasenjit Bose, negativism. You know, the Prime Minister saying you're affecting the India growth story.
No, I think that first of all the negativism arises from the doings or wrongdoings of his government. So he is responsible more than anybody else for the negativism that is spreading. But secondly, I think that this whole India growth story is itself quite responsible for both the problems that we are facing today. In terms of corruption, we are actually become tolerant, and I think that is what the Prime Minister is epitomizing, a kind of forbearance towards corporate sleaze and corporate corruption. And on price rise, I think India growth story is a growth story for the rich. For the poor, it is food inflation.
So you can't push growth at the cost of inflation. You cannot push growth
I actually did not follow, as an economist, what Prime Minister's very tenuous linkage between growth and corruption was. The poor people are not experiencing any growth. He is himself saying, in Unadi 100 rupees per day. That's the minimum wage. Where is the growth? Only inflation.
Okay, there's only inflation, no growth. So the negativism is important to convey because the government is responsible for negativism. Final words from my two journalists friends, and then of course Manish. Let me come to you, Manish. But Manish, how will history judge your Prime Minister?
Well, I think it's very premature, Rajdeep, at this point in time to make a historical judgment, because 10 years may just be a footnote in history, and so therefore I think we should leave it to posterity to judge. But I have one point to make to Mr. Prasunjit, that over the last 20 years, 300 million people have been lifted out of poverty. Another 300 million people have been added to the population of India. What this means is, as compared to 1991, in 2011, you have 1 billion more meals to give per day. And if the government has managed the macroeconomic situation commendably, notwithstanding there is a problem of food inflation which the government is trying to tackle, I think the government deserves credit for that.
As a result of which, we have the world's biggest, most hungry population in the entire world. As per the
let's not go to the glass could be half full, the glass could be half empty. I'm going to give the journalist the final call. Vinod Mehta, have you seen this press conference as a sign of weakness at the end of the day on the part of the Prime Minister, a sign of desperation, some would say, or a sign that here is a Prime Minister who's ready to confront his critics and take aggression into the opposition camp?
Well, Rajdeep, I'll be very brief. I think history is likely to judge Manmohan Singh as a good man fallen among thieves.
Okay, a good man fallen among thieves. Final word to you, Prabhu Chawla. I have 20 seconds.
You have only 20 seconds.
Yes, 20 seconds. Your final one-liner on the Prime Minister.
I'll also be very short in that sentence. We will judge he is a clean Prime Minister who did not pursue his mission or his conviction.
He did not pursue his mission or his conviction. A clean Prime Minister who did not pursue his mission or conviction. Okay, Prabhu
for the sake of power.
For the sake of power. Prabhu Chawla, Prasenjit Bose, Ravi Shankar Prasad, Manish Tiwari, Vinod Mehta, appreciate your joining us on this special program. Thanks very much for watching.